Hi, I'm Stephanie Swales. I am serving as the interim chair for the Masters in Psychotherapy here at DCU, and I'm also the clinical placement coordinator as well as a member of the core psychotherapy staff. And if you're watching this, you're interested in potentially applying for our program. So I'm going to give you a brief overview of the nuts and bolts. So in addition to the master's program in psychotherapy, which prepares you and leads to your being able to be accredited as a psychotherapist for professional practice in Ireland. We also teach a doctorate in psychotherapy and offer a professional diploma in clinical supervision. Further, we do supervise the master's and PhD level psychotherapy research students. And just to mention that it is possible as a student who's not enrolled in one of our three courses, it's possible to attend a standalone module for some individual professional development there. This is our team. There's 6 of us on the core psychotherapy staff, and Lilia capably serves as an administrator for the psychotherapy team. It is a 4-year part-time program, so that enables students to have part and full-time jobs, have families, have lives, and be able to complete the course on their way to becoming an accredited psychotherapist. We're a level 9 program on the NFQ, and that counts for 120 ECTs. And we have 2 accrediting bodies at the moment. So one, the IACP, since we are an integrative psychotherapy program in terms of modality, and 2, the NAPCP. So you would be well positioned upon completing the requirements of the Master's in Psychotherapy program at DCU to become a fully accredited practitioner, psychotherapy practitioner, for instance, with the IACP. We are also seeking CORU accreditation, which is the state-regulated body that has just recently come out with some regulations for psychotherapy amongst other helping professions. So that's in the works. So as I mentioned, we're an integrative psychotherapy course. So we will teach you the theory and help you with skills and practice in a number of the main psychotherapy modalities. So that being humanistic approaches, psychodynamic, cognitive behavioral, and systemic. And will help you learn what an integrative approach means, but you'll be, drawing from those main approaches throughout your time with us at DCU. And we do focus on work with individuals and with couples who are adults. So this is not a program where you would learn to work with children. So this is just kind of the specifics of what you might expect. We haven't finalized the calendar for the 2025-2026 academic year, but we do expect that modules will be held in blocks of 10, 5 per semester on Thursdays, Fridays, and Saturdays, with one exception of one particular module, which is held in 8 blocks over the course of the academic year. And that we've found really allows for flexibility for people to make accommodations with their work so that they can attend the course. In years 3 and 4, the number of days that you'll spend on campus or in the classroom will decrease, and the number of hours that you will work in clinical placements with clients and doing supervision will increase, as well as especially in your fourth year and the second half of your third year, you'll start to meet with one of us on the psychotherapy team as your research supervisor. And we have a requirement of the course in which students do their own research project. Typically, we focus on qualitative research. Students have done mixed methods or quantitative in the past. But for the most part, that's a qualitative approach that we focus on, and that leads up to the master's dissertation, which is one of the requirements for graduation. So in addition to classroom time and your master's dissertation, you will be spending your time in personal therapy, which is a requirement of the course. We firmly believe that you really can't be the best practitioner you can be unless you yourself have gone through the process of psychotherapy and have some experience of it. Further, doing it during the course helps your own personal and professional development, is another sort of support and way of being a reflexive practitioner. In other words, looking back on yourself and your own way of working with clients and your own thoughts and feelings, and trying to be in the best listening and intervening position possible when you're working with them. So the clinical placements start in year 2 of the program. And as I said, you'll be expected to have more clinical hours when you're in year 3 and 4 than you will in year 2. And for each hour of psychotherapy that you'll be providing to clients, we do require, according to ISCP requirements, a 1:5 ratio of supervision to client hours. So in other words, for every 5 client hours that you have, you'll have 1 hour of external individual supervision. So those are not delivered by myself or the other members of the psychotherapy team to avoid dual relationships there. So you'll learn in our course the psychotherapy theories. As I mentioned, we'll have a lot of focus on skills development even before you ever work with an individual client. They're in your clinical practice placements. As I mentioned, clinical supervision is absolutely essential. Various types of personal development projects. We have a psychotherapy process group that you'll be participating in each year of the program with your colleagues and peers at DCU. There's a research component, and then of course, independent study and learning. So this is our current program content. So we have the first year here. You can see you learn some of the basics of the main approaches to psychotherapy that we focus on at DCU. So the humanistic approaches, cognitive and behavioral, psychodynamic, and then of course the integrative, in addition to having the professional practice portfolio module is something that you'll have each of your 4 years that includes skills practice, some learning about psychotherapy and mental health, as well as the process groups that I mentioned. And in the second half of your year 2 and beyond, you'll also have group supervision experiences. So I won't read out all of the different modules here, but you can see that we have different focuses in each of the models to try to round out your knowledge of the field as a whole. So systemic approaches, intimate relationships, you might talk about family work, couples work, even a systemic approach, what it is to think about the context of someone at the social, cultural level, at the family level, in terms of religion, etc., when you're working with an individual. So it's not just learning about working with more than one person there. In years 3 and 4, you notice there's fewer modules, as I mentioned, there's because of the requirements for your time spent in starting your research project and in working more hours in your clinical placements. So, and just rest assured that you will receive sufficient supervision from us on research, if that's not something you're familiar with, to help shepherd you along the way. So our requirements, so this is the professional practice portfolio that I mentioned, is a module, a year-long module for each of the 4 years. Of course, it's different each of the 4 years. So starting in year 2, you will start to accrue 300 hours of clinical practice. And coinciding to that with the 1-to-5 ratio, you'll have at least 60 hours of individual supervision. And it's important to note that this is not something, these are supervisors that have qualifications that have been approved by us and the psychotherapy team at DCU, but it would be up to you to fund the supervision. So that is an additional cost. We have quite a few supervisors who work with us, who work with students at a low cost. So that's something that's possible if that's something that's important for your ability to complete the course. 60 hours of group supervision within the program, so that's not an additional cost, that's not external, that's within the professional practice portfolio module. You will need to have 80 hours of personal individual therapy, and that too is something that you will source on your own, and that will be as well another cost there. And then the personal awareness group I mentioned, the process group, is also within the professional practice portfolio itself, in addition to 110 hours of personal reflection work. So this is a really substantial piece of your professional development included in the professional practice portfolio modules each year. We offer a variety of learning support, technological support at DCU. We have a personal tutor system, so each one of you will be assigned a personal tutor. If issues or questions should arise, you're welcome to request a meeting with your personal tutor or send an email. So we really try to have some individual support. Of course, you're welcome to reach out to module coordinators, depending upon what the situation is. If it's questions about modules, that would be the natural thing to do. But if there's some difficulties that are arising for you, the personal tutors are the way to go. Then the DCU library has excellent resources, both in terms of the psychotherapy related, online databases and journals, and of course the staff themselves. And a key feature I'd say is the writing center, which is a great resource to help you in not writing the essays that might be part of modules, but helping you become a stronger writer and have a look at a draft and give you some ideas about how to improve it, especially when it comes to the dissertation, which is the kind of capstone project at the end of the master's, which is 8,000 words currently. So that's a big piece of writing, and many students helpfully avail themselves of the Writing Center's resources. All right, we do also have a communication suite, so video recording is possible there for different different skills-based exercises that you'll be doing throughout your work at DCU in our psychotherapy program. So applications, I won't belabor everything here on the links. Our closing date is the 28th of February. Excuse me, that's a typo of 2026. So you can still apply for next year. And you'll need to provide evidence of your academic attainment, what degree you may already have, relevant professional experience. You'll need to write a personal statement saying, why you as a person, believe that you have the capability of serving as a psychotherapist, and then 2 letters of reference, both academic and professional. So the entry requirements for year 1, you'll need to already hold a relevant undergraduate degree. So that might be psychology, it might be nursing, social care, social work. In addition to having a minimum of 1 year's recent relevant professional caring or helping experience, including training or supervision. So there's no specific number of hours that this needs to be, so it could be it could be a work experience, it could be a volunteer experience. It's just, thinking like helpline work or social care experience, guidance counseling, special needs teaching, something broadly in, kind of in the mental health adjacent sort of fields that is significant enough to have given you exposure to the fields and some idea that, psychotherapy is the profession for you. So again, it doesn't have to be 40 hours a week or 20 or 10 or even 5 necessarily, as long as it's at least a year in duration and it's, meets these criteria. That's the important thing there. It does need to have been mostly working with adults rather than working with children, and be based on verbal interactions. So it's not texting or emailing, it's interacting live with a person. So, all right, we've got selection interviews, it's the next piece. And just to mention a few things about if you want to apply for the recognition of prior learning process or through that process, that would mean that you believe that you have sufficient previous experience, academic experience included, that would make it so that you don't have to complete all of the modules years 1 through 4. So make sure that when you go that route, if you choose to go that route, that you first apply through the online portal to the master's program, and note your intention to apply through RPL in your personal statement. So just to flag that. After, should you have a successful interview and be offered a place, Then you would submit your RPL application to the chair of the Master's in Psychotherapy program. So the fees this year for those with EU status are €7,000 per year. And for those without EU status, it'd be 13,400 per year. These are set by the university, might be, changed potentially. And then, of course, as I mentioned, there's additional costs for personal therapy, clinical supervision, and in some cases, obtaining student practice insurance to cover your clinical work and your practicum placements if your placement doesn't cover this on your behalf. So some placements will do so. Okay, so just some of the specifics here. If you're wanting to enter as an RPL student, then as a second year, students are required to directly enter into clinical work. So all students applying for RPL into second year have to undertake and successfully pass our readiness to practice assessment. So we have to be able to, as a psychotherapy staff, through this assessment, say, yes, this student demonstrates sufficient clinical skills and presence to, ethically be allowed to work with clients in their practicum placement. So this is a 25-minute observed and evaluated skills practice session. So that's ahead of our recommendation to the Faculty Teaching Committee for approval using the Faculty of Science and Health RPL form. So in other words, students won't be admitted through RPL to year 2 unless they've successfully passed this piece. So you'll submit the RPL application to the chair. It's then reviewed by the RPL board, and then fingers crossed, basically. So it's also possible to enter at year 3 through RPL. And here it would be important for, necessary for third year students to have already had some engagement in client work. So our third year students in the master's program in psychotherapy have already accrued a minimum of 80 hours of practice. So all students applying for RPL into the third year also have to, again, just like for the second year, undergo this readiness to practice assessment ahead of their recommendation to move on to the Faculty Teaching Committee for approval for the RPL process. So the RPL application at this level must include evidence of fulfilling the requirements of years 1 and 2. So you've got to have some roughly equivalent, more than roughly, but some equivalent experience to what we offer in our program at DCU. So you might have, for instance, a graduate diploma in counseling or psychotherapy, or equivalent in that respect. So if it is possible in our program, so students who are enrolled, if you successfully complete the first 2 years, you may choose to exit the program. If for whatever reason you don't want to continue, we would be able to award you a graduate diploma in psychotherapy. But that is not a professional qualification. So that would not qualify you to go on to independently practice psychotherapy. It's just, it's an academic award, but it would allow you, if you wanted, to return to the MSc in psychotherapy at, as an RPL in year in year 3, and should you undertake the successfully the selection process. All right, so we don't have a live Q&A session here, but I hope that this gives you a pretty solid sense of our program. And I wish you all the best. All right.